Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Bull and Specs. My name is Adrian Lacey.
And my name is Adrian Lacey.
And it's good night from... No, not yet. How are you, Shane O'Connor?
I'm all right. My name's Shane O'Connor, really. Not a lot of people know that. I'm good. It's great to have you back. I really missed you last week. Missed your absence.
Say that?
Yeah, no, seriously, we did really miss you. We couldn't go ahead with the podcast. So if you're going back through these and thinking, what happened? Where was the one that was missing? It was missing because Adrian has not been... You've not been well, have you, at all?
Well, as my grandfather would put it, I was taken queer. And you could say those things in those days without fear of misunderstanding. But
he always used to shout, "Where's my washboard?" as well, didn't he? But have you seen me?
I've got another one there.
Oh, I've been taken queer. Where's my washboard? Seriously,
for people who haven't seen the Fast Show, that's not going to make an awful lot of sense.
Not a lot.
Hey, seriously, what?
Seriously, you've not been well, have you? You've
I've
had
been
a rough
seriously
week.
not well. Yeah, I've had better weeks, and I was detained at Jeremy Hunt's pleasure, which means that I was in an NHS hospital. Leave it, missus. You're writing your own material now.
What a great way. What a great way of putting it. Yeah, okay. And how was that for you? Because we were worried about you.
I almost believe you. There's such a genuine warmth and concern in your voice. No, I do believe you. And it was very sweet of you. I don't know how graphic you want me to get, but it was intestinal.
I think that's enough, isn't it, really?
It's more than enough, I think.
Nurse,
Don't go there.
Nurse, the curtains.
The screens.
We've had no, go on. You can go a bit more. We'll tell you when to stop.
We'll work our way down from the esophagus.
Yeah.
Well, I'd had these tummy pains for the weekend,
Huh.
or I say tummy, actually it turns out my stomach's not where I've been thinking it was for all these years. But that's why I'm not a gastroenterologist.
Do you know, I don't think I could put my
one.
finger on where mine is, actually. I mean, it's...
No. Well, as he told me, and he's clearly done 9 years study or whatever, you put your hand under your left rib, at the bottom of the rib, and then it's an L shape. He says, 2 down and 1 across. I said,
okay.
Well, what's the clue? Clue is, sounds like stomach.
Is this the cryptic one?
It sure is.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it's not as far down as I thought. So when I say tummy pains, actually tummy's a vague young person term anyway, so I shouldn't be using it. It was more a sort of a wall of pain, but not particularly, not heavy, because I could live with it. I lived with it for 2 days, and I just used it as a good excuse to just sit on the sofa and do nothing.
Yeah.
I caught up with a video I've been meaning to watch, just by the by, JFK, the smoking gun. For years I've known about it, but finally I used this pain as an excuse. But
So how do
JFK now?
How do you get from watching a JFK movie on the sofa to being admitted to hospital, though? Because that's quite a step, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It wasn't that I was shot, I'll just make that clear.
Or under scrutiny as the second gunman.
But I can go into some detail about the man with the umbrella. But anyway, enough grassy knolls. No, it's when he got to day 3 and nothing was changing. It wasn't getting worse, but it wasn't getting better. So a friend of mine gave me this catchphrase to live by, and that is to listen to your body. And I took him very seriously in that because he had cancer at one stage. Happily, decades ago, he's had a fantastic life since and quality of life. It was actually spotted by his dentist, of all things. He had cancer of the jaw, so he owes his life to his dentist. Another reason to go, even if you don't feel like it. But anyway, so listen to your body. I thought by day 3, it's time to listen. So I thought I'll step it up bit by bit. Can't get a doctor's appointment on the day for love nor money round my way. I don't know how it is your way. Is that a problem with you?
Well, we just moved, so I mean, when the episode we were talking about doctors, I'm kind of in the dark at the moment. I know it was getting worse where we were, but they kept building houses around the doctor's surgery, and didn't put any more doctors on. So you don't need to be a genius to figure out that that's going to be a problem, do you? But I mean, the problem is that if it's something that you think I've left it now for 3 days and it's really worrying me, that's even worse when you can't get an appointment, isn't it? Really.
It is, and also, unless you want to tell Porky Pies, which I didn't, because I'm hopeless at it, but believe that or believe that not, you don't qualify for A&E anymore after 24 hours.
I didn't know that.
No, they say if symptoms have persisted for that long, then go and see your GP. But then you go around in circles, don't you? Because you can't get to see the GP.
Yeah.
Pharmacists came up with one suggestion. It actually coincided with what my wife suggested, but she's not a medical person, doesn't pretend to be. But she said, "Why don't you try this drug?" And so it's just an over-the-counter thing, but that didn't work. You're thinking other sorts of drugs.
She's not a pharmacist, but she's very well connected and said, "Why don't you just try this drug, and I'll put on some rave music, and we'll see how we get on."
It'll take your mind off it at the very least.
Anyway, 20 minutes in the dark. Any better? No!
Duck-billed platypus fish. I'm doing the dance. The hand dance. Anyway, so it's much more entertaining the way you tell it. Why don't you have this story? Tell people about my health problem. Anyway, so cut a long story short. No, it's already a long story. I haven't cut it short. But anyway, that didn't work. So I texted another well-connected friend, and she worked in the field of health herself in the past, and she told me about a walk-in centre I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah.
And that's the only way around it, isn't it? If you can't get a GP appointment on the day, you go to a walk-in centre. Of course, the term walk-in centre means you could walk into it, but you can't get seen immediately. 2 hours wait. I think it was more like 2.5 by the time I got seen. But she did say take a good book, and I did. Anyway, the GP just took it very seriously. Thought I'd got appendicitis. Turned out not to be that. But anyway, he wrote a note, and he pulled a few levers that he had access to, and I then had to go to A&E, but I didn't have to do the usual 4-hour wait because he saw it was more serious.
And your time in there, I mean, we've been in touch obviously and just texting backwards and forwards to see you're okay and that, but your time in there has been spent, I guess, just waiting to see whether like sort of investigation stuff and just, I mean, they're still not any clear as to what happened, are they?
No, it's not fully clear. So there's more tests to come, but yeah, it was a bit more concerning for me. You can see that they've seen everything before, haven't they? And but it's, when you're on the inside and you've never done it before, it's you're thinking of worst case scenarios and so on.
Yeah, it's like we were saying before, isn't it? It's another day at the office for them, but for you, it's something quite unique and quite out of the ordinary. But you're looking good. You're on the mend now, are you? I mean, you've got to go back and
go back in a few weeks for yes. Again, it depends on the degree of detail you want. But suffice to say, I've insisted on high definition, 1080 lines, progressive.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So
we can
put it on
some video.
Yeah, we can put it on YouTube, can't we? So you can be able to see. Maybe we should change the name of the podcast to Inside Out or something like that.
Or where the sun don't shine.
Yes. Answers on a postcard to what you'd like to call various euphemisms for what we could call the podcast. Well, my week seems a little bit sad now in comparison to your drama.
No. Your week matters as much as mine. What's your headline?
I bought a new pan, which is mine.
No, you're right. That does sound sad.
Not a bedpan, obviously. No, I just want to mention, because people keep looking at me, and I keep doing this, and I was going to tweet it actually and say, I'm a little. I don't know if you know, but I'm a bit evangelical when it comes to gadgets and things like.
You're a technophile, aren't you?
Well, not even so much that. Like the JML stuff. The kind of the things like the.
That's a boy band, isn't it? Oh, that's JLS.
Like the super duper fast spud peeler and all those kind of like they're like really low tech. I think really. They're not that high tech and all. I love all those kind of things.
You'd have been a great Victorian, wouldn't you? With one of those broccoli peelers. I'll just grind the dinner, love.
But what it means is I end up buying all this crap, and well, it's not all crap. Some of it's good, but I tend to be drawn to the ones that end up being crap. And so anyway, right. long story short, I've been badgering the wife like mad every time the JML Copperstone pan came on, and we're not being sponsored. This episode isn't sponsored by JML Copperstone pan.
Although we're hoping next week's will be. The paperwork takes a while
to come through, and so does the cash. But no, I bought one of these things, and it's stone. And you can literally cook anything. So if you do a stir fry, right? You can do a stir fry. You can put everything in there, and you don't need any oil. Nothing sticks to this damn thing. It's brilliant.
Really?
It's honestly, it's life changing. And so we've been kind of like tasting food all over again. To have like food and like you can like say you have a stir fry, and you don't have to put any oil in there at all, so it doesn't taste of any oil. So you just taste the vegetables or whatever it is that you put, the peppers or whatever you put in there. And the same with, like, I mean, you can cook anything from sausages to mincemeat to just all in this, and nothing sticks to it. I've yet to find something that's
like you, isn't it? They don't call you Teflon O'Connor for nothing.
Teflon is for wimps, mate. This is like Teflon on steroids. It's just amazing. But I'll keep you posted if I find anything. That I've been going around the house picking up different objects from around the house to see if anything will stick to it. And
have you tried Post-it notes?
No, hang on, I've got a pack here as well. No, we'll try the Post-it notes later. I'm thinking about making a video and put it on YouTube, like different things that I've tried to cook with this pan.
What with my interior shots and your non-stick stone pan?
It's a match made in heaven, isn't it, really? Tell you what I was looking at this week. I don't know if you saw this. Actually, this was down your neck of the woods, Adrian. This story about the Harvey Weinstein effigy that burns at the annual UK Guy Fawkes bonfire event. They've taken they do this every year, Dana. This is your neck of the woods, isn't it? They do this every year. They burn an effigy.
Yeah. I'm not a specialist and I haven't been there, but I did catch the story. I actually tweeted something about it earlier in the week, probably from my hospital bed. So I must have been on the mend.
I don't know whether like sometimes you see stories and you think, am I overreacting to this, or am I kind of out of step with everybody else? But I kind of checked the calendar on several occasions just to make sure it was 2017, because it's kind of got a little bit of a sort of I don't know, the witch trials about it. I mean, there's a number of aspects to it that leave me a little bit uncomfortable. But I mean, and then you look back to see who chooses these effigies. Previous contenders have been Donald Trump, Sepp Blatter, which as far as I'm aware, his only crime against humanity is he's made a few quid off the back of FIFA, hasn't he? I don't think he's he's not been responsible for international genocide as far as I'm aware, anything like that. And Katie Hopkins, who I had to look Katie Hopkins up to figure out where she came from because I didn't watch the programme that invented her. But again, she's just a gob on a stick, isn't she, really? Do these people really deserve to be burned as effigies, do you think, these days? Is this where we're at now in 2017?
Well, it has got something of the sort of baying of the mob about it, which is effectively what I said on Twitter. Also, what concerned me was that the Weinstein effigy looked like a cartoon character, as if all the allegations against him are a bit of a joke.
Right.
And of course, you go to a fireworks display for entertainment. So that doesn't ring true, because the people, if it's true, what he's alleged to have done, I mean, that seriously mucks up the rest of your life, doesn't it? Potentially, psychologically and otherwise.
And I've made no secret of the fact I'm going to be, touching wood, all being well, at the end of December, I'm going to be a dad, or it could be the middle of the start of December. What would you tell your kids? I'm going to take your kids to a bonfire night, and they go, "What's that, Dad? What are they?" So you've got to explain who Harvey Weinstein is and the whole news. I mean, or do you just say it's a nasty man, or do you know what I mean? I don't know where you go with it.
But you could say that we shouldn't be burning any kind of guys, considering, and I've just discovered that you're of a Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, we're very sensitive about this kind of stuff.
Well, exactly, as well you might be. And I had a C of E upbringing, but don't hold it against me. How very nice. I've got what was it? I'm trying to remember his name. Oh, Larry Grayson. Yeah, start an act by saying, I feel like a vicar's handshake. And if you've been brought up in the Anglican Church, you know exactly what
that means. Yeah,
I love that phrase. So yes, well, we should be getting rid of anyone on top of a bonfire, really, shouldn't we? But then do you get rid of the entire November the 5th and fireworks and all the rest of it?
I don't know.
Stop.
I have to say, on a kind of lighter note, I remember Tony Blair's effigy being but somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember where it was. And I watched it on the news, and I remember thinking, they've really not put any effort in there. It was essentially a sack with a picture of Tony Blair stapled to the front, and I thought, come on, you've got to be able to do better than that. I mean, this thing, there is some work. I mean, I know you said it was like a cartoon, wasn't it? And I think that's their thing, because I'm looking at the Trump one was the same. The Trump one, he was holding the beheaded head of Hillary Clinton. Again, what do you tell your kids? For goodness sake, when you're going to a bonfire night. But this one was 11 metres tall. So,
really? I had no sense it was that huge.
So you can't really say they haven't put the effort in terms of effigies. I don't know. I just wonder whether this is where we're going now. This is where we're heading. And as you say, this to me is the social media thing. They always talk about the baying mob on social media. Isn't this the baying mob of the modern age just personified now? This whole thing of setting fire to people that are still alive. I mean, isn't there some kind of sense of excuse if the person's been dead for a few hundred years? You can say, well, that was then, this is now, look at how far we've come. But quite honestly, we haven't come that far. It was still
no.
I
think it takes us back to a much less civilised age. It's the kind of thing you can imagine happening around the time of Guy Fawkes, if not earlier. I guess there's always been this element of people congregating together, and it's kind of, speak to any comedian actually. I remember one who told me that his theory was that a crowd in a comedy audience acquired the lowest IQ of any one individual there. Whoever had the lowest IQ, that was what you were playing.
Was the leader.
So literally the lowest common denominator kind of thing.
I was looking at some of the quotes from the story as well. Laura Burton Lawrence is the spokesperson for this Eden Bridge Bonfire Society, who are doing all this. And I kind of thought, she'd say something like, like kind of try and justify it, and this is why we wanted to do it or whatever. But she was quoted as saying, he's going to be going up in flames with gunpowder, explosions, all sorts, before we have a huge firework display taking place afterwards. And I just thought...
She talked like that?
She does. I don't know why. She said, we felt it was only fair that he got to see his comeuppance tonight. Well, so you've obviously...
She's decided
She's decided. She's judged him. I mean, I'm not saying that he isn't, but for goodness sake, let's go through some kind of charade of trying to pretend that you're going to get a fair hearing, rather than the trial by press or trial by public opinion. I don't know. Yeah. I just find the whole thing really, really weird. Has there been much local reaction to this? I mean, do they kind of go, "Hey, what a laugh! Here it is again," or have there been any dissenting voices about it?
Well, I should have been up to the minute with this, given that I had nothing else to do in bed last week but to follow this kind of thing. And I was actually listening to a local fireworks display. But no, sorry to disappoint. I'm not aware of any local reaction. But tell you what, it reminds me of two things, and both of which take us back different degrees to the past. I know I said it takes us back a few hundred years. You could argue, actually, it makes me think of... and this might be touching on something we were saying off air, as it were, about Monty Python and you were talking about meaning of life. I'm thinking maybe Life of Brian, but the Pontius Pilate thing, when he faces the crowd and says, "Who do you want forgiven?" It depends how well you will know your Bible rather well, I'm sure, given your upbringing. But Pontius Pilate, effectively, that's where the phrase, wash your hands of something, because he put it over. It's a bit like having a referendum, dare I say. Yeah. It's like, we can't decide amongst ourselves. We're the people in power. We throw it open to you, and if you get it wrong, then we can blame you.
Yeah, I do. And was it in the Bible? What did it say? Fui Wadwick, wasn't it? I can't remember what the actual quote was. But I don't know. To me, like you say, this whole, we talk about bullying online, we talk about inappropriate behaviour, and then something as big as this goes past, and it's nobody. Because I couldn't find any dissenting voices anywhere. Everybody thought it was a right old giggle, and I don't want to be a party pooper, but I just kind of thought, a bit weird, a real strange thing to do, and a real strange reaction from people. But then maybe I don't know people as well as I thought I did. What I want to know is, how do you get on the shortlist for next year?
You're halfway there, I think, with your comments and with your impersonation of the person who runs the event. Right, we got our man next year. He's bald and beautiful. The other thing I was going to say was, and this might not have lodged in people's brains quite so much, but there was a political poster once which got pulled, and it will have been around, it's pre-Blair time, and it posed the question, would we be better with a hung parliament? Do you know where I'm going with this? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it showed, it must have been about 1992 then, Paddy Ashdown, probably John Major, probably Kinnock, each with nooses round their necks.
That's right.
For goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Do you remember the product they were selling? There's a
No, go on.
for you.
Go on.
I think it was the Today newspaper.
Wow.
It was certainly a newspaper, and and it got pulled. But ad agencies are forever pushing at it, aren't they? I mean, they're all run by Katie Hopkins. They'll push and push and push, and they win both ways, don't they? Because they put it up and then they say, "Oh, we'll take it down because we're so virtuous and we don't want to offend." Yeah, but they knew they were going to offend.
Easy to say. Don't do it next year. I think they will. I don't know who. It'll be the pantomime villain for next year, presumably, that will be up there. I mean,
oh no, it won't. Hey,
no, you're right. It won't.
Okay, into the final furlong we go with taxation and the Paradise Papers. Are you across this, Shane?
Oh yeah, I love this. But just remind people what the big hoo-ha as
hoo-ha.
Is it Robert De Niro? No, not Robert De Niro. What's the other one? What's the other guy? Scarface.
Banana
Al Pacino.
Oh no.
Hoo-ha! What's the big hoo-ha? Sorry.
Well, I can't make it sound as exciting as that, I'm afraid. How sexy is taxation? The point is, it's another chapter in the Panama Papers, is it not? Effectively.
Well, yeah, it is. I thought there was some kind of posh cigar fag papers when they said the Panama Papers. I had no idea what the hell they were on about.
Yeah, but then you thought the Barnett formula was something to restore your hair. So we're not taking any lectures from you, are we, mate?
That was quick. I like that. It was quick. Go on. So the Panama Papers and what are these called? The Paradise Papers.
Paradise Papers, yes.
Are the same kind? But they're basically, it's like a shaming list, is it? Is that?
It is, and it's stuff that you mentioned. These what is it? The HNWI. Do you know what that is?
No. High
net worth individuals, or as we used to call them, rich.
Hinwis.
Rich. Well, I was deleting. I was doing live bleeping.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I'd have gone for the Hinwi.
Keep up, Gordon.
Pronounce it as HNW. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, high net worth individual. I don't know why we have to call them that. I suppose it gets around the fact that if you live in London, if you're lucky enough to have a house, you are probably a paper millionaire.
Yeah.
But you can't lay your hands on £1 million. It's bricks and mortar, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So high net worth, I suppose, says you've got more access to it, doesn't it? No, maybe I've misunderstood.
So what I couldn't get with this story, Adrian, was what the big deal was, what the problem is, because you have two ways of not paying tax. You have tax evasion, which is illegal, and you have tax avoidance, which is legal but probably not ethical.
Can I add a third one, which is my weakness, which is tax form avoidance, whereby I leave it right until the last minute and usually get fined.
You just don't fill it in. That's a different thing entirely, isn't it? But do you see what I'm saying? Is that if this is a big problem, just make it illegal, because God knows that's what the Treasury does most of the time, or HMRC will do most of the time. Her Majesty's tax inspector,
Revenue and Customs.
Yeah, will just they'll say, right, okay, well, we'll change that now, so you can't do that anymore. I don't know. I don't get why they still have these loopholes, but I presume it's because it's internationally and it's outside of our jurisdiction, is it?
Yes, it's the old offshore thing, isn't it? And Bermuda and so on.
So you
it's
just
like
say
the Bermuda Triangle, the money disappears, not the ship.
So your yacht
plane
disappears with all your cash on it.
Well, yeah, your 80-foot yacht.
So you just say, if you're a British citizen, you can't do that. I don't see what the problem is. If it's such a big deal, then you just make it evasion rather than avoidance. And I don't believe all these people who come out and say, oh, this is disgusting, they've got enough money and they should do this and they should do that. Are you really telling me that to a man of these people, that if they got the opportunity to pay less tax, that they wouldn't? Because I know I would. I'll be honest with you. If I could pay less tax, I would.
Yeah, it is a tricky one, but of course these are the very most powerful people with the most highly paid accountants who will find the next loophole, won't they?
Yeah.
It's just a constant arms race. And also you do wonder how much will there is in chasing them up, because, former Chancellor George Osborne hasn't got a few bob in the family, and he will move amongst people who will say, George, can we have a quiet word about your new legislation you're thinking of?
Yeah.
And that's how it goes. It's not you and me making this legislation.
The one sweet spot in all of this, though, isn't Bono caught up in this?
The Lithuanian shopping centre.
There's only one way it could get better, and that's if he's invested with Bob Geldof. That would make my life complete then, because a preachier pair you couldn't wish to meet, could you really? And there is they are always faced with that argument. And they're going, well, if you care so much about it, then why don't you put your millions in or whatever? Now we know what they're putting their millions into. Then Lithuanian shopping centres.
Yes. But also, I'm not saying that for legal purposes. I will say there's no suggestion that Bono is anything to do with the shenanigans in Malta, but it is actually he used a Malta-based company, and we know what happened in Malta in the last couple of weeks. The journalist who got blown up because she was on the trail of dodgy money men. As I say, to make it clear, and so we have another edition of Bull and Specs. I'm not saying that Bono's in any way involved in that, but it does make you think, hang on, Malta, it's shaky. It's an EU country, but it's sounding, it's sounding all too close, like the mafia, isn't it?
I have to say as well. I mean, I don't kind of think that Bono has got the first, like the Queen has got the first clue where their money is invested. I don't believe for a minute they get involved in the day-to-day running of it. I'd be very surprised if they did. Yeah. Madonna is another one, isn't she? She's been a shareholder in a medical supply company in Bermuda. So maybe the bedpans that you were using over the last week were
don't laugh.
Thanks to
well, I did look at the hallmark on the bottom, and it did say Madonna. So
actually, no. In fairness,
possible.
I think she deals more with like the medical screens and stuff like that, because she's always been a material girl. But the idea that these people have got any clue as to, all they know is that their people will say, well, we'll make your money work for you as hard as we possibly can, and that's how it's sold to them, isn't it? Really, so they don't really know what's going on. However. If you believe in something, if you believe in socialism, for example, does it mean that you've got to live your whole life to the nth degree doing everything that a socialist would do? Or can other 50 shades of socialism, for example, and like to say, well, Bono might believe certain things, but that doesn't mean to say that he doesn't want the best for him and his family. That's where I get confused with it all. And
I would question whether Bono would call himself a socialist, unless you've heard him use that
term.
No,
I'm sorry. I wasn't conflating the two things together. But do you know what I mean? I like that Bono has been preachy. He's been a bit preachy. I think he would be the first to admit that he's
I think so.
He takes a soapbox with him wherever he goes. But then he also moves...
You mean he washes his own clothes?
Got to take his soapbox with him, hasn't he? But do you know what I mean? And he kind of... At what point do you say, I believe in all of this and I believe the world should be a better place, but equally, I'm here to make it for my family, and that's what's important. I don't know. I just find the whole thing a bit confusing, really, in that sense.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for the Bono lyrics about a Lithuanian shopping centre. I mean, if you can get the word Lithuanian in, he'd be doing well. In terms of getting it to what rhymes with Lithuanian shopping centre.
I think he's got his work cut out for that one, hasn't he? Really, to be honest with you, the one that surprised me, Amitabh Bachchan was in there, the Bollywood star. Because I never think of Bollywood as being particularly successful, but I mean, it just shows you obviously where the money is. He's there with the Duke of Westminster and the Queen and all the rest of them.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Well, not for nothing is it called Bollywood, obviously based on Hollywood. And also, if you think how many people there are in India alone, there's a population of 1 billion.
yeah.
So that's 3 times the size of the States, for goodness sakes,
Yeah.
which is already 5 times our size.
If they all spend
So-
a quid on your film, your quid's in, aren't you? Really, you've done quite
You
well on the whole
certainly are,
thing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that I want to take us full circle. Then, should these people, because they've done this, should they end up being contenders for being an effigy on the bonfire next year? I mean, do you know? This is my point. Is it so bad what they've done? I mean, if like I say, I don't believe. It's when I used to work in radio. They used to say this, this thing. They're saying, right, we're going to stop people using their cars. What do you think? And people have phoned up and they go, yeah, I think it's great. You should stop people using their cars. Definitely, you should definitely stop. So go, so you're prepared to not use your car? And they go, no, I can still use mine.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing that it actually affected everybody else was a good idea. When it actually affected you, not so keen then. I don't know. Is it because people know I'm never going to be that rich, so it doesn't affect me? So this is safe ground. I can give them a kicking. I don't know.
Well, talk is cheap, isn't it? But it does lead us back to where we started, really. If Bono was paying tax on that money that was spirited away in bricks and mortar in the Lithuanian shopping centre, I could have had carpet on the floor in my ward last week. I'm mad as hell, and I don't care who knows.
Does it work that way? I'm not sure that Bono's
I could have had colour TV as well.
I don't know what to do. Shall I give the money to the Lithuanian shopping centre, or shall I give it to Adrian's carpets in his ward? I don't know. That's a terrible impression of Bono. I do apologise, Bono, if you're listening. I know he tunes in regularly.
I wasn't sure if it was Bob Geldof, but
Bono
they'll merge
Geldof.
into one with you, do you?
They're all the same in my psyche. We're out of time again.
Oh, no.
I know. On that bombshell, as Alan Partridge would say. Before we go, we just wanted to tell people where because you can get this, if you're listening to this, you can get this with pictures.
Yes.
And if you're watching this and think, I'd rather just listen to it, to be quite honest, you could get that version as well, can't you? So there's loads of
I have that feeling when I look at your picture. I would rather just
sound,
put up
please.
with your audio, and even that's pushing it.
But
So
places,
yes,
places you can see,
we're
go on, Tom.
multi-platform, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say a few, but you've been instrumental, and all hats off to you, sir. Unless you outsourced it to your darling wife. But anyway, we are at the very least on the YouTube, as Uncle Bryn calls it, in Gavin and Stacey.
Yes.
We're on Stitcher, which you told me about as I was in hospital, considering whether I was going to have surgery, which I thought was a bit tasteless.
Could have chosen my timing a bit better for that. I'd only just discovered it myself as well. I never made the correlation. But yeah, Stitcher, where you can go. Actually, it's like a kind of internet radio station where you can kind of mix and match what podcast you listen to. It's quite good as well. We're on Spreaker. I think that's where we originate from. So if you listen there, then we get an accurate idea of the figures and who's listening. YouTube, Stitcher, Spreaker, and of course, iTunes.
Oh, yes, by the by.
If you, it's almost like an aside now, isn't it? That's how massive we are. If you want to go and have a look on iTunes, or maybe not.
And the Apple Corporation has featured, of course, in the Paradise Papers, but we don't want to upset them, otherwise they'll take us off iTunes. We love you.
It'll just go silent, that bit. They'll just, when you think, where did that bit go? When we put it on iTunes, I don't know. ShaneO'Connor.net, you can find it on my website as well, but loads of other places. If you just put Bull and Specs into wherever you are on your favourite browser, you should find us. That's it for another episode. We will be back in a week's time. All being well, I hope you'll be well as well. And
it's goodbye from us then.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the next edition of Bull and Specs.